This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Chag kosher v'sameach. A good moed, everyone. L'kovid, the Yom Tov of Pesach, Tavshin Pei Beis. We're going to attempt a new limud, a revolutionary limud, something we never ventured in before, and that is we're going to try to explain the Maimar Sod Etzba Elokim from Hamakubal Ho'alaki, Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, who was one of the great all-time Mekubalim, who was killed al Kiddush Hashem on the third day of Av, in the year Taf Ches, the year 1648, during the pogroms of 1648, 1649, the Chmielnicki pogroms. And Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli explained a wondrous letter or mamar of the Arizal, and we're going to speak about, well, where is this mamar from? We have all the Kisvei Ha'ari. We know Reb Chaim Vital brought to us all the Kisvei Ha'ari, and this is something that comes from the writings of the Ari, and it's not part of the regular corpus of the material of Reb Chaim Vital. And Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli gives a wondrous promise that anyone who studies this letter, even once a year, especially Erev Pesach, he is vouchsafed, he'll be honored, and he will be wealthy, and he will be healthy. So we're going to try to explain this letter. This letter is primarily based on the letters that compose the Makkos and the mnemonic of Rabbi Yehuda bar Erloi. And it was later Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli's commentary on the Arizal's revelation was later explained by a Talmid Chacham and Tzaddik, Rav Chaviv Chaim David Stahon, the Av BD of Teveria, who wrote a commentary on Mamar Sod Etzba Elokim about 120 years ago. This Gadol, Rav Chaviv Chaim David Stahon, wrote a number of svarim. He wrote a sefer Takvoi Shel Nes on none other than Rav Meir Bal Hanes, which has the Haskama of Rav Avram Falaji, and he wrote a sefer Korsaya de Eliyahu. Now, just to get a little glimpse of the greatness of Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, the Baal Shem Tov said that if one were to learn the Zohar with the commentary of Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, Machane Don, the limud of Machane Don on the Zohar would bring Mashiach immediately. And the Chayz of Lublin said something astounding. The Chayz of Lublin writes in Parshas Vayetze that Mashiach ben Yosef will not be killed, even though we have a tradition that first Mashiach ben Yosef is killed in battle, and then comes Mashiach ben David. No, says the Chayz of Lublin, because Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, he writes this in the sefer Divrei Emes, Parshas Vayetze, Divrei Maskal Vayizkar, that Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli was none other than Mashiach ben Yosef, and he was killed already, so he doesn't have to be killed again. So this is a little bit of the greatness of Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, and Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli himself writes about the potential for Mashiach to come in the year Taf Ches, and that's alluded to in the big Taf and the big Ches in Megillas Esther. But if it would not come, it would be a year of great tragedy for the Jewish people, and the Gezerah of Haman would come out in that particular year, says Rav Shamshon of Ostropoli, quoted in Nitzutze Shimshon. Be it as it may, this Maimar Sod Etzba Elokim is about the letters that comprise the Makkos, and how these letters are Shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how the Rebbeinu Shalom brought Makkah to the Egyptians and Refuah to Klal Yisrael through these letters. As we know that on the pasuk, Ve'es oisoisai asher samti bam, we have a drasha, Karibei oisi oisai. Karibei oisi oisai, meaning that the oisoisai, the signs, the wonders, could also be read the letters, and there's a significance about the letters in they comprise various shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, Rav Shimshon of Ostropoli brought in Nitzutze Shimshon and Parshas Kisisa on the pasuk Vayomer Kum Asei Lanu. He brings that it is well known that Adam Harishon was poigem in the 4 Oisios Havaya because he was over on Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Shvichas Damim, and Lashon Hara. And the three Avos and Moshe Rabbeinu were all Masake in one particular letter. So Avram Avinu was Masake in Avodah Zarah by breaking the tzlamim of his father. He was Masake in the first Hey of the Shem Havaya. That's the secret of Avram became Avraham with the Hey. He was Masake in the Hey of Havaya. Yitzchak was Masake in murder, Shvichas Damim, by going to the Akedah. So Yitzchak, a lashon of Tzechoik, he was Masake in the Yud, the extra Yud of the Shem Havaya. Yaakov was Masake in Gilei Arayos for the first 84 years of his life, Loira Kari, and he was Masake in the Vav. That's the secret why in 5 places Yaakov Avinu was spelled Malay with a Vav. He was Masake in the Vav of the Shem Havaya. And therefore, until Moshe Rabbeinu came, Hashem says to Moshe, Ushmi Havaya lo nidati lohem. I did not become known through the Shem Havaya to the Avos because they were only Masake in the Yud of Yitzchak was Masake in the Yud, the Hey Abraham, the Vav of Yaakov, but the final Hey, Moshe Rabbeinu was not Masake yet, and therefore Hashem's name Havaya was not yet known to the Avos because it was still Nifgam from Adam Arishain. And Moshe Rabbeinu was his job was to be Masake in the final Hey through the Chamishe Chumshei Torah. This is the secret of the pasuk. Ve'amru li ma shemai ma oimar aleim, which is Soifei Teva is Shem Havaya. Li ma shemai ma is Soifei Teva Shem Havaya. And this is the secret. V'zelecha ha'ois. The Hey will be the final letter that you need to be Masake. So we see the Tachlis of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to be Masake in the Shem Havaya, which came about through the various Makkos. And as we know, the Shem Havaya that corresponds to Chodesh Nisan is Yismuchu Hashemayim V'Sogel Ha'oretz, the Shem Havaya forward, Barashei Tevos. And therefore, by reciting the various Makkos and the various letter combinations, the sefer Shemesh U'Magen brings a person. It's Mavatel or Makatrigan, it's Mavatel or Mastinim, it's Mavatel Gzeiros Rois. And how beautiful this fits in with something that we've spoken out in the past, that the Haggadah Shel Pesach has exactly 1,820 words corresponding to the number of times the Shem Havaya appears in the Chumash. So this was all revealed through Rabbi Shamshon of Ostropoli explaining the holy words of the Arizal. Now, why was Rabbi Shamshon of Ostropoli zoicha to this revelation? He himself said that he had a dream to be able to reveal these secrets. Well, the sefer Shemesh U'Magen says the reason why Rabbi Shamshon of Ostropoli was zoicha to reveal these secrets, it lies in the Gemara in Sot and Daf Yud. Rabbi Yochanan says Shimshon was so named by the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara says, well, maybe you can't erase his name if he's named after HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara ultimately says what Rabbi Yochanan meant was just like a sun shields and protects the whole world, Shimshon likewise protected the whole world. And the Svarim ask, what's the Gemara's Havamina that you can't erase the name Shimshon? Is it better than the Kinuyim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Then Rachum Mechanu, that they are Nimchakim? Shimshon, which is not a name of Hashem, that is Einam Nimchakim? What's the Gemara's Havamina? And the Sefer Shemesh U'Magen suggests that the name Shimshon is a very mystical, unusual, and powerful name. It is the ultimate sign of the Shem Havaya. It is numerically valued 696. Shimshon is 696. 26 times 26 is 676. We spoke about that in the past on the pasuk Rabbois Ra'os Tzadik. Ra'os is 676. So Yud K times Yud K is 676. But if you take those two Yud Ks, b'miluam, and you spell them out, the Yud you spell out Yud Vav and then a Daled. The Hey you spell out Hey and then a Yud. The Vav you spell out a Vav followed by a Yud followed by a Vav, and then a Hey times Yud, Hey and Yud. So the Shem Havaya b'milua is 10 letters. So one times the other is 20 letters. So 26 times 26 is 676, plus the 20 letters of the two Yud Kei Vav Kei b'milua, 696. So Shimshon is the ultimate reflection of Hashem's name b'milua. And the Sefer Shemesh U'Magen suggests that Shimshon, Reb Shamshon Ostropoli, who had this name, was zoicha to these great revelations of the Shem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, in the Psicha in the Hakdama of the Sefer, he brings, who are we to delve into such matters? Is this the type of information that we should not access? And he brings the Haskama of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz for the Sefer Asbaklaria HaMeira, which includes Chidushim of Rav Shimshon Ostropoli on the Zohar. And Rabbi Yonasan says, even though he does not give Haskamas to Sifrei Kabbalah, but the Yediyos of Rav Shimshon Ostropoli, which are necessary to understand basic principles in Torah, need to be accessed by everybody, and therefore he will deviate from his regular practice and give a haskama to the sefer, because this information is so critical and so fundamental. And this applies to this work as well. As we're going to learn, it is a minhag in Klal Yisrael to say this specifically on Erev Pesach, and we'll discuss that in the next segment. And I would like to share with you further. This sefer, Sod Etzba Elokim, is based on something that Rizal wrote in a work called Pla'os Rabbis, and yet we do not have this work, this mysterious work of the Arizal, Pla'os Rabbis. Now, a grandson, a descendant of Rav Shamshon Ostropoli named Moshe Chaim Steinberg refers to a sefer Ruach Elokim of a grandson, of a descendant of Rav Shamshon. In other words, a Talmud Chacham today, Rav Moshe Chaim Steinberg, refers to the sefer Ruach Elokim of a descendant of Rav Shimshon of Ostropoli, who he quotes various svarim of Rav Shimshon of Ostropoli, and they explain many plios stumais from the sefer Pla'os Rabbis. So we see that the sefer Pla'os Rabbis was something that was accessible at a certain time in history, and it is suggested by the author of by the compiler of this Maimer Sod Etzba Elokim, that there are various works of Kabbalah that were never published, and they were retained by various families. For example, there is Kabbalistic works of Reb Chaim Vital that were never published and are only found in the hands of the descendants of Reb Chaim Vital. There are works of the R HaKadosh that it is prohibited for anyone to open, and till this very day lay in the hands of the descendants of R HaKadosh. In fact, the descendant of the Chassam Sofer, Shlomo Sofer, in the sefer Rinas Doidim of Hagoyin Rabbi Leo Baal Shem, he says that he has from his Zayda Chassam Sofer Kabbalistic manuscripts based on the Kabbalah of the Ramban, Ibn Ezra, the Rekach, and Rabbi Azriel that were never published, and they remain in the family of the Chassam Sofer. Now, an interesting issue is that descendants of Rav Shimshon Ostropoli refer to something that Rav Shamshon writes in the Machane Dan, which, by the way, after it was first printed, it was suddenly lost because the tradition is the world could not handle it. But in the Sefer Ruach Elokim, he says, and the Ruach Elokim was written by a descendant of Rav Shamshon Ostropoli, that Rav Shamshon wrote in the Sefer Machane Dan that he's the descendant of Manoach and Shimshon Hagibar, which would have to be reconciled with the tradition we mentioned earlier that Rav Shimshon Ostropoli was Mashiach ben Yosef, and that's why the Chazal of Lublin says Mashiach ben Yosef would no longer need to be killed before Mashiach ben David comes. So this is all by way of introduction to the Maimar Sod Etzba Elokim. In the second segment, we'll explain why there's such a powerful havtacha for one to be healthy, honored, and wealthy through saying this, and we will discuss the proper time for the recitation of this Maimer. And Be'ezus Hashem, in the upcoming segments, we will go through it, and actually through the Parsha of the Shemesh U'Magen, it is actually very clear and understandable, and we shall be zoiche to the brachos that come through all limud Torah, oirach yomim b'mina, u'samayla oisher b'chavod.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.